Hi, my name is Patricia Lamore. I'm the CEO of Aspire Education Group, and we're based here in the UK, in Germany and Uganda. That's the official script. What people don't know is that I'm a cancer survivor, twice. That's why, for me, health and wealth are like this. For me, wealth means healthy mind, healthy body, and healthy spirit. Something else that people don't know is that for the last 12, 15 years, I've been a lone parent. I've had to bring up 3 children, 8, 13, and 16. I've got 5 in all. And each of those 5, I've invested, when my husband was alive and we were together, we invested in private education for each one of those 5 children. And that's why I can now count my wealth. My eldest has a PhD. My second one has a bachelor's and he's a computer specialist. My third one has a master's. My fourth one has a degree and a creative designer. And my fifth one, now that's a story. My fifth one didn't do well in his GCSE and his A-levels. But he found himself, and we invested again in cybersecurity and ethical hacking training, and he's probably going to earn more than all of us put together. And this is what I mean about investing in your children for the future. Health and wealth are like this. And you as a parent, you cannot be at peace unless you know your children are doing well. And when you've done what you're supposed to have done, and when you do, even when it is hard, it's difficult, we are the parent. We brought them into this world. Therefore, we have to take the responsibility for their outcomes. What are the consequences of our children failing to make the grade? If your child has not made the required reading and maths levels at the end of primary school, so that's your SATs, let me tell you, your child is predicted to fail their GCSEs. It's as simple as that. And if your child fails key facilitating subjects in GCSEs, that's your English and maths and some others, but particularly English and maths, then they're cut off from higher learning and higher earning. So that's why, as parents, you have to invest early. Start off when your children are very young, preferably before they go to school. I've always made sure all my children can count to 10 and know how to spell their name and know the alphabet off by heart before they go to school. So what will you get on this summer wealth camp? Your child's going to get academic preparation, SATs, GCSEs, and wait for it, 11+. 11+ is usually only for children who are going to enter independent or private schools. We're going to teach that as well, so that it can help reset children as they transition into secondary school. Also, you're going to get African-centered thinking and youth leadership development. That's what your young people is going to get. And finally, you, the parent or the carer, you are going to be prepared. You are going to be prepared for wealth.
Greetings. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Walk This Way, brought to you by Father to Father in association with Nexus and thanks to Enfield Council. My name's Eddie Nestor, as you can see on your screen there. And with me, as always, in these events, Lisa. How are you, Lisa?
I am fantastic, Eddie. Good evening.
Um,
Really looking forward to today. I'm calling it the educational special.
well, yeah. I mean, there's so many people I've spoken to, and there are a bunch of hugely articulate, educated people on this,
Yeah.
and me,
Us.
because I'm only on here to find out how I don't go to prison. Because there are a few stories. I've been doing news, hard news, for 20 years now, right?
Mm,
And, I've won awards, so I'm supposed to be quite good at it. And you kind of develop. You have to, because you can't take every story, but there are some stories that get to you. They just do. Grenfell.
yeah.
Yesterday, I was doing an incredibly happy one, which was the 10th anniversary of the 2012 Games, the opening ceremony, where
Mm,
they
mm,
included Windrush. But this one got to me, man. This one got to me. I went to, in an observational capacity, of course, at the demonstration outside Hackney Town Hall. And I think from it comes a lot of things. You send your child to school,
to
they are in
school.
loco parentis.
Right.
What rights do I have as a parent? How do I
Mm,
inform my children?
mm,
Because once a police officer comes into the building, right, everybody steps back, don't they? And you imagine. But there are ways that as parents we can get more involved in the school community. And it's going to be really, really interesting to listen to what people have to say today. And I know you're going to reiterate what I'm going to say, but let me just say it. Please get involved. Please ask a question. I mean, I know most of the people on the panel today, and
mm,
I've interviewed them, I've talked to them, I've reasoned with them, and they're very, very good at what they do, and you got to, we, not you, we have
mm,
to listen, but we
mm,
need you to get involved, with these things. No
mm,
point really in doing it. And hopefully this will live on online so that people can access it, look back at it, and don't worry if you miss anything this time. Lisa?
Absolutely. So for me, the purpose of me getting involved is because I want to be empowered. I want to help empower the community. This education special for me is really important. We've got some great, exciting guests, but in light of what has recently happened with Child Q and some of our young people, as we're finding out about the stats of these strip searches, and we're in the summer holidays now, so we've got all these amazing young people on the streets of London and around the country, hopefully being entertained and occupied by their brilliant parents while our lovely teachers have a break. It's been hard. We've gone through a pandemic. We have to applaud the teachers and the work that they are doing. There is more to do, but we're hoping that this month's Walk This Way will encourage people to get involved, to get off their couches, become school governors, and just hear about some really great stories from people who are making a difference in their community.
Absolutely. Very well said. They're 6 weeks holidays now,
Yeah.
so it's really expensive. It's really expensive. It's really difficult, and hopefully through this we can also find things that we can do with our children. But this is primarily around preparing ourselves for a school year so that we can be part of that community, help the teachers, and help our children to become the best they possibly can. So, as I say, a number of fantastic guests. I invite you to get involved. Lois is going to be putting your questions forward. Evening to you, Lois.
Lovely Lois.
Hey, good afternoon, evening. I don't even know what time of day it is. Hi, guys.
Yeah,
Hi, honey.
just tell everybody who you are and what you do, please. Good evening to you, Lois.
Absolutely. My name's Lois Brown. I'm one of the directors at Father to Father, an amazing organisation which has actually put on today's event. And I'm here really just to see all your questions that are going to be coming through for our amazing speakers. So please don't be shy. Feel free to start submitting them as soon as something comes to mind. Because what we found in many of the other events that we've done is that we run out of time because you
Run
guys
out of time.
amazing questions. So get them through. You can start popping them through. And after every guest speaker, I'll come on and have Eddie and Lisa pose them to the guest questions. So it's
Okay.
lovely to see you guys all, and I'll be back again, I'm sure.
Thank you very much, Lois.
Thanks, Lois.
So as my mum used to say to me very often, in these things, shut up and talk. It took me a little while to understand what she meant, but I meant that he come on here to listen to you lot waffle. Get the people them who know what they're talking about on here now, please.
Bring in the expert.
Mikis. Okay, right. Let's get a young man on. Amani Simpson. He's a governor. And one of the first things I was taught, you know, when I had a child, first thing people said to me is, be part of that school community. Mum always said, I send you to school to learn, but she didn't have the wherewithal, unfortunately, to back that up. But you can't just send them to learn. You actually have to be part of that. So I'm going to let him introduce himself, tell us why he got into it, what the clues are, the ways of getting in it, what you get out of it. So Amani Simpson, thank you very much. This platform is now yours.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, lovely.
Yeah, it's a blessing to be here to share the space. So yeah, as you introduced, my name's Amani Simpson. I always kind of start off and say that I'm a human first. I'm a child of God before anything else. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm having this experience and trying to have an impact. Then I would say I'm a storyteller. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a youth coach. As you mentioned, I'm a governor. I'm actually a governor of two schools, a school and a college. And I love being myself every day and trying to shine light in the lives of young people. So yeah, some of you may know me from my short film Amani, which showcases my story. Unfortunately, I got stabbed 7 times when I was 21 years old, intervening in someone's argument and basically not minding my business. And yeah, I made a film about it to inspire and give hope and to challenge particular narratives for what young people can achieve. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm looking forward to adding value to the conversation.
Great. Well, we're going to get off and let you do it. But I just want you to make sure that within that, you explain to people, A, why you've done it, and B, what you get out of it. It's really, really important, I think.
Yeah, no problem. For me, I became a governor because I was expelled from 2 schools. I've been through the pupil referral system. I was the first boy in my primary school in year 2 to get excluded from school. My mum was actually on the governing board, and because there was lots of different reasons why I got excluded. I was bullied from year 1, and so I really tried to fit in with particular types of people, thinking that would help me to kind of not get bullied. And unfortunately, what I didn't realize until too late is that I was always the kind of one at the butt of the jokes. You know, as much as I was making everyone laugh, people were laughing at me instead of with me, and I was always getting in trouble. So I think kind of growing up and looking back and seeing that actually there probably wasn't a lot of representation on the boards in the schools. My mum was probably one of the only Black people of color on the board of my primary school. And so, you know, a lot of the decisions that were being made about me were not made by people who understood my lived experience and my perspective. You know, I can also imagine that for my mum, it was very, very difficult to kind of be in that position of leadership in the school, and, you know, also have a son that is struggling within the school system as well. And yeah, I guess when I got older, actually, the school that I'm a governor of, for anyone that's seen my film, I robbed a young boy when I was in school, and he actually went to the school that I'm now a governor of. And the reason I became a governor of that school was as way of kind of giving back, because I was a menace to that school when I was younger. You know, I made a mistake. I was being influenced by the wrong people. But now as an adult, you go back and you right your wrongs where possible. And so, yeah, I've been a governor of that school for a while. It's an Enfield school, a secondary school. And yeah, I love sitting on the panel or sitting in the rooms and challenging the head teachers, bringing particular issues to the forefront and making sure they stay high up on the agenda. And I think for me also, being the youngest and the only Black male on that board, allows me to speak for Black men, Black boys in particular in the school, and enable their perspectives to be brought to the forefront, talking from my own lived experience, especially schools that sometimes find it very easy to push out in various different creative ways, push out our boys and kind of say we're going to do managed moves or, you know, different things. So yeah, being in the room where I can kind of challenge that and make sure that they're getting the support needed and, you know, come from a place of mutual understanding is a real benefit. And yeah, I guess for me, what I get out of it is, yeah, I'm in the room.
Seeing as they've left me on, and I can't stay quiet. You know, I thought they were going to take me on, but seeing as they left me on, let me ask some of the questions that I think people might be thinking about at home, right? So when you're in a room and it's being discussed, something that may not be culturally sensitive, appropriate, or whatever, how do you make your representation, and is it listened to?
Yeah, definitely. And there's something I learned probably a little bit too late in my life, which is don't raise your voice, raise your argument. I say that again, don't raise your voice, raise your argument. And so back in the day, I used to shout and nah, man, throw chairs and, you know, argue with everybody. But now I'm just like, well, you know, statistically, or what are the stats? What are the facts? You know, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. So show me the numbers. And if you can't show me the numbers in relation to young people that are black and brown, marginalized, especially, you know, disadvantaged, etc., then we're not looking in enough granular detail. So I think it's about how you articulate your points. It's when you do it as well. And luckily, for those that don't know, when you're a governor and you're in these meetings, everything is noted. So there's minutes, and you should have a clerk that is taking the notes of the meeting, and so therefore you can refer back to them before the next meeting. They always ask you, is that what you said? You know, is there anyone who wants to kind of bring anything up again? So again, if it hasn't really been brought up in the right way or kind of represented in the right way, I always make sure I go back and circle back to it.
Why is it important that black people are governors?
Because, I mean, there's so many reasons. I'd say one of the main reasons is that especially the Caribbean boys in school, they're not achieving what we know they are capable of achieving, and a lot of the time there's biases. A lot of the time there's systemic things within the school that enable those kind of those disparities to be continued longer than they need to. So essentially being on the board allows you to kind of sit in the room and challenge the thought process. You know, for example, I'm able to say what is on the curriculum. I'm able to, you know, see what are the special projects. You know, when George Floyd was murdered, I was able to bring up a conversation that enabled us to have some really hard conversations within the school that have never been had in that school before. And, you know, I think primarily, if I'm honest, being on a board with majority of where the majority of people are not black, you know, those conversations are quite difficult. And so again, it takes a particular, you know, delivery in order to have these uncomfortable conversations, but you need to have the conversations. And especially after momentous things like the murder of George Floyd, a lot of people are doing a lot of soul searching and want to do something different. They don't want to do the same thing.
Is that not different? You know, there's a lot of guilt money going out because of George Floyd. There's a lot of black people in adverts because of George Floyd. There's a lot of people who are saying, oh my God, I just didn't realize playing with your hair was not what you wanted. But this child Q thing is something more pernicious, because it's something that happened to a child where a parent wasn't called, where they didn't take on board. Listen, the one thing I know is that the rights and the well-being of the child have to be front and center. And that didn't happen. And I think, I don't know, although hopefully people will put questions in to all of our guests, I think as a parent, I would want to know, could that happen at a trial that you're a governor?
It could happen. I mean, not in my school. That's first and foremost, not in my school. And also I think it, you know, I don't know the ins and outs of the situation. I haven't been privy to the actual details of it, but
they took a little girl into a room.
No, I know that bit, but I don't know the ins and outs.
But let's not complicate it.
Yeah, you're right.
Other points. A child was sitting an exam. They thought the child had ganja. They called the school officer. That one of the reasons that this one's touched me is because I have campaigned for a decade for there to be police officers in schools, because I didn't want children to be like me in their first encounter with police to be adversarial. But I'm realizing now that they're only in a particular type of school. You understand what I mean? So I feel like a bit of an idiot. So that's, sorry, I don't mean to pressure you, sir. This is your
no. Feel free. I guess
sorry.
Go on. As a parent, go on.
No, I want you to speak. I'm not supposed to be here.
I'm enjoying these questions in the sense that it's challenging me to think about why I do it and what the process is. I guess the first thing that you would look at is what was the procedure in that school, what are the policies and procedures in the school around these things. And unfortunately, and again, I can't speak from a place of fact, because each situation is different. First and foremost, it's wrong. It should never have happened. But I look at it and say, other schools should be now, if they haven't already, looking at their policies and procedures, because these are the things that governors speak about. Yeah. When we go into the meetings, we challenge these things and we say, well, that situation was handled terribly. And we hope that the people that were in power that should have been doing things differently, they now should be held accountable and things should be changed. And for want of a better term, reparations or compensation should be given to the child and the family 100%. Now, me as a governor that's heard that, I need to make sure I bring this to the agenda at the next curriculum and not curriculum and standards, the next school priorities, or these different meetings where you speak about these things and you say the school priority now is, what is our policy on stop and search? What is our policy on how police handle children? What is we bring in safeguarding leads. We'd make sure that there's a real robust investigation into our processes. A good school, in my opinion, would then bring in external people to come and say, this is what best practice is. The teachers would go around to other schools and say, okay, our policy isn't up to standard. It's unfortunate that, these things only seem to change when something drastic happens. It's so sad, like that someone had to go through that. But as I said, I think, without knowing the facts, I don't know what their policies were. Fundamentally, it should never have happened.
Yeah, it should never. But what you've said there, say, it is fantastic, Armani, because I'm believing and I'm hoping that if we go back to George Floyd and what happened on that May day a few years ago, that it means that people have an opportunity to look at themselves, which is why we're here, which is why this work is fabulous, and it's brilliant to hear from you. I'm going to invite Lisa to come back on, and Lois, just in case there are any questions, because it's really important, because I think you're one of the few men on the panel today. So that's, I think we've kind of feminized our education system. I have this theory that when we feminize systems, it means that we don't take as much time. It means that we don't have to pay them as much. But that's just me and my mind. That's what happens in health. It was what happens in education. So it's great to have you on here. I don't stutter. I don't know what's the matter with me. Lois.
Hi. Yes. Hi, Eddie. I'm here. We have everyone seems to be super shy today.
Oh my goodness.
But we do have it's either that or they're very tired. But Tony, one of our attendees, he was asking the question here. I put it on screen. The whole Met Police being under special measures tells you all we need to know about police and policies. It's more of a comment. But he had an earlier question here, which is he hasn't seen any changes since the following of the murder of George Floyd, and he works in a school as a teacher. How can we address that?
Do you know what my challenge? Sorry, say that again. Sorry, you were
maybe you can answer if you've seen changes in the schools in which you work very closely with.
I think I would challenge Tony, and I don't know you at all, Tony, so apologies if this is something you're doing already, but you can have staff governors. And if you're not a governor of your school already, maybe you're the change that you need to see in your school, because I think fundamentally there are not an abundance. I mean, I know we've got someone that's going to come on later and speak about the Black governor agenda and stuff like that, but we need more Black men in particular in these spaces, especially if our Black boys are struggling. I walk around the school with my hat backwards and I say, yo, well gone to the man there.
Come on, brother.
I chat to them and I let them know,
I'm too old for that. But I put on a proper trainers.
That's what I'm saying.
My son thinks they're up. They're daddy das. He calls them. He calls them that. You have to speak in a language that people understand, right?
That's right.
100%.
Wherever you are.
100%. Right. And don't get me wrong, I can throw on a three-piece suit and I can, do what I need to do in the meetings. But when I'm talking to young people, it's all about the engagement. It's all about making sure that they feel like I'm representing them and I'm willing to hear their voice. Because a lot of the time in the rooms, as with companies, there's not a lot of youth representation. There's not a lot of representation from those that people seek to serve. So back to you, Tony, I would challenge you to, to speak to the school and to find out if you can become a staff governor, because there's always spaces. And, I think it's a 3-year term. So it may be that someone's coming to the end of their term and you can apply. And I know that, someone's coming on later. Sharon is going to, I think she's coming on, right? Sharon's coming on later. And I've connected with Sharon previously, and I know that the work they do there is amazing. So the training that you can get you know, this understanding, this empowerment that you can get on how to handle the, you know, yourself on the board, how to apply. Like, we should all be signing up for this. And you know, I'm young, and I need to see more young people in these rooms, because we're a lot closer to the age.
I'm young too, Amani.
No, I hear that, man. Come on.
Amani, I had a really quick question. I know we've got lots of amazing guests, so we've got to kind of move along, and I don't want to rush you. I've seen you in action. Just in relation to practically time, you know, we are sometimes time poor in certain cultures. Our amazing mummies and aunties doing 3 or 4 jobs to put food on the table. How much time do you have to give in your role as a school governor?
Yeah, I think there's 2 ways to answer that. I think there's things that you agree to. So I'm going to agree to attend the general meeting, the annual general meetings, or the quarterly meetings, and then you can be part of committees. So I can be part of the finance committee. I can be part of the special priorities, also the curriculum and standards committee, and all of those happen in an evening. And what they usually do at the beginning of the year is they give you the dates, and they're usually a couple of hours in an evening, 2, maybe 3 hours maximum for some of the longer meetings. A lot of the time they can do them on Zoom, for example. But then, to answer the second part of your question, I give a lot of time going into the school and working, you know, whether it's free mentoring or assemblies or whatever. So I think if you can add something else, not just come in and kind of sitting in the meetings, which is equally important, you can offer to do workshops. There are ways that you can work within the school and offer, you know, ongoing empowerment to the students. So it just depends on you know, but we're all busy, as you said. You've got to just kind of juggle it.
Well done for what you're doing. I imagine there are lots of other things that you could be spending your time on, and it's lovely to have you in a space like this that's mostly for older people, that's mostly for women, because it lets people know that you know, it is a space. Quite often we look at spaces and then we go, that's not for us, and that's part of what we have to deal with as well. So it's wonderful to have you on here, and I wish you the best of, and when you make your next film and you're looking for somebody to you
know, you're laughing.
Remember,
you know what, you're laughing, like, that's not even a joke. So
but I don't do anything for free, bro.
No, I don't. Neither do I.
We'll talk again, Amani. God bless you, man. It's good.
You too.
What happened to you was terrible, but you know, for me, I've interviewed you before. You're finding a way to use it, and I appreciate what you do, brother. Well done.
Thank you, man.
We're already late, so
we're cutting into time.
Shut up. So it's my fault. I'm Spartacus.
I'm going to move swiftly across to our amazing next guest. So thank you, lovely Eddie and Lace, for answering those questions. Just want to remind our guests that we have got an evaluation link that we would love you to fill out at the end, please. And do keep coming with your questions. We do have this on Facebook, so you will be able to go to it at a later date, because everything we do with Walk This Way is about empowering, giving you knowledge and information. There's various links that I can see at the bottom of the screen. So just remembering that this brilliant opportunity, which is free for us all to attend, Walk This Way, put on by Nexus in conjunction with the lovely borough of Enfield, just trying to empower us. This is our educational special. So now I'm going to be inviting an amazing guest, really looking forward to speaking to Kelly Reid. Kelly is the director of an organisation called Parents Voice, the Crib, Hackney-based organisation. Her aim and objective is to support the empowerment of parents and carers, enabling us all to have a greater level of knowledge and understanding regarding risky behaviours. So she's looking at safeguarding children, she's looking at early intervention and supporting prevention. So lovely, Kelly. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me.
Our pleasure.
Pardon me?
Our absolute pleasure, Kelly.
Oh,
you know, you're doing a beautiful job. Sorry that we've kept you waiting, my lovely. It's just as soon as we get every guest on, we just have more questions that we want to pull out of you.
Yeah, it was lovely listening to Armani anyway. He made some really good, valid points about school governors. I myself am a school governor, and I chose to do that because, like Armani said, it is really, really important to be embedded in the school. If you can't see the change, you need to be a part of the change. So yeah, he did a really good interview there.
Absolutely. So Please, if you want to just tell us a little bit about what you do, what inspired you to do it, then I've got a ton of questions that I'd like to ask.
Okay, so first and foremost, I'm a parent. I'm a parent of 2 children who are now, one's going into adolescence and one is fully fledged. That's a boy and a girl. So first of all, yeah, I'm a parent. I think that stands for everything. Yeah. I've worked in youth and community work for the past 20 years. In 2016, I decided to develop Parents' Voice. I decided to do this because of all the years that I've worked with young people, working with young people who are at risk of offending, working with young people who are being excluded from school. What really stood out for me is that no one was really speaking for parents and nobody was empowering them. I mean, it's very important that we support rather than judge. And unfortunately, we are very quick to judge and not as quick to support. So for that reason, I set up Parents' Voice, which supports knowledge and understanding around risky behaviours. So risky behaviours such as gang affiliation, substance misuse. So they're more like adolescent processes that will happen in life. As a child transitions from primary to secondary, as we know, if you're on here and you have children yourself, I'm sure you do, and you will know that transition it's a shock to the system. You know, you go from primary where your child is saying, yes, mom, yes, mom, yes, mom. And then all of a sudden they get to secondary school and then they try to push the boundary. And that can be really challenging as a parent. And what a lot of parents will do is back off. This is not the time to back off. I would suggest that, you know, a time like that transition is that it's not about backing off. A lot of parents think, you know, we're now able to take more shifts because our children can look after themselves. When actually this is the fundamental time. When your child was 2, your child went through adolescence, but they were 2. So we could deal with it. It's the terrible 2s. We knew what it was. Everybody talks about it. But when your child goes through adolescence, nobody talks about it. You know, we're just like, oh, they don't talk to us. They isolate themselves. And it's really important that isolation that children do at that age is very much a process of manifestation of kind of things that they may be going through. So the importance of our conversations with our children at this time are significant to their development. And when I say our conversations, I'm not just talking about us talking. As you can tell, I'm a chatty person. I'm also a chatty mum. I have an awful lot to say, but I know it's really important to listen. It is really, really important to listen to your children, because if you aren't listening, you won't know what's going on. So I'll let you take the floor now.
Of course. And thank you for that. One of the thoughts I had when I read your bio and I heard about what you did and what you do is, what types of issues are our parents facing? They've got this beautiful generation. We've got an internet gadget kind of geniuses. I've seen 2- and 3-year-olds who can navigate around a mobile phone and a laptop better than I can. What kinds of things are parents coming to you with as issues? And I don't actually have children. I'm just a phenomenal aunt. So in relation to that transition, oh yeah, I'm part of the village, honey. And you know, in relation to some of the challenges, I didn't realize that there was this crisis that young people go through when they leave primary school and go to secondary. You know, I just focus on, right, who's got nice school uniform? You have to turn up for your first day at school. But as I've kind of been around godchildren, nephews, nieces, and friends, they've told this to me. So, you know, I was just wondering, what kind of issues do parents present to you?
Okay, I think first what happens is that we try to keep our children away. Well, majority of parents will try to keep their children away from mobile phones. Then your child goes to secondary school, and the introduction to secondary school is that mobile phone. So as a parent of 2 children, I've done that transition. I held back the mobile phone until 2 months before they went to secondary school. I held it back.
That's amazing. I
think the reason why I did it is because I am very aware of the influences the mobile phone has. And as somebody with 2 children, I will say my first child, it was very easy. So I did that transition. I really held out. The second child now is a whole different kettle of fish, because the second child is watching the first child and what the first child has. So trying to hold back with the mobile phone with the second child is really difficult. But first and foremost, we are the parents, so we are in control of that. And I would say to any parent listening that if you haven't given your child the mobile phone yet, please do hold back as long as you can, because the longer you hold back, the easier that transition will be, and they will be able to understand a bit more. You know, parents often come to me and their child is in year 4, so let's say 8 and 9, and they have a mobile phone, and then they'll come to me discussing things about, you know, they're going on social media, they're seeing all these images. And the first thing I would say is, what made you make the decision to give them a mobile phone? I mean, who do they need to call? Where are they going? You know, the mobile phone we are giving our children when they transition over to secondary school is so that we know that they are safe. But this doesn't necessarily mean that your child needs to have a smartphone. I mean, I know, you know, it can be a bit about image. It can be a bit about image. I get that.
The brick phone.
Yeah, that's what I had. I mean, my phone,
one of these.
Phone, yeah, my first mobile phone was bigger than my house phone. So, yeah, I know it's difficult. I mean, my son's school has a no smartphone policy. Okay. So I know some schools have no mobile phone, which puts parents in fear. Oh, you know, they haven't got a mobile phone. What are we going to do?
Can't contact them. But in the old days, we didn't have these phones, yeah?
This is it. We got through the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. We didn't have the mobile phone. We were all very safe. I mean, if I didn't, you know, I remember once I didn't attend school and my mum knew by the time I got home, and that was without the mobile phone, you know, so really we don't need the mobile phone, and schools really do keep in touch with the a good school will keep in touch with parents in regards to your child's attendance if they've arrived at school and if they haven't. So in regards to the phone, I would definitely say hold it back. In regards to the concerns that parents have, I think it would be the ongoing the information overload. And that's why I do the parents' voice sessions, because I think it's really important to empower parents about giving their children context to the information. You know, I grew up, children are seen and not heard. It doesn't work anymore. You need to hear your children.
Different generation.
It's a completely different generation, you know, and we need to just roll with the times. It's difficult sometimes, you know, I hear myself saying, well, when I was younger, well, we're not younger and it is a different time and we didn't have smartphones. So, yeah, I would definitely say to transition to secondary school, get the mobile phone, but 100% have informed conversations with your children. If your children on social media platforms, they shouldn't be on them till the age of 13. But if you are allowing that, it's really important that you have a family member, not necessarily yourself, because your child will block you, because they can block you from any social media platforms. So it's important that a family member or somebody that you know is linked to your child's social media platforms, so that you have got somebody monitoring it. And if you listen to your child, you'll have trust, you know, and your child will feel confident in having these conversations with you, screaming. Actually, Amani said something about shouting. He was saying when he spoke earlier, he was speaking about shouting. Yes. And I, you know, it was very poignant what he said, because if you shout, you're not heard. And as a parent, if you shout at an adolescent, believe you me, they're not listening.
And just to kind of, because all of our guests are bringing different things to the table today. And I really wanted to pull out from you in the few minutes that I've got left, from a parental perspective, what can our parents do to influence and support their child's education? So just thinking about parents accessing, because you've given us some great nuggets in relation to some of the issues parents are facing, but what about parents influencing and supporting their child's education? How can parents become more involved in their child's school or a local school? And are there any organizations they can access for advice?
Okay, so firstly, there's Parents' Voice. We support parents in and around. There are lots of other organizations that are amazing. I think it is really important that when we are supporting our children in school, it's important that you work alongside the school. Very often parents come to me and say, but the school did this and the school did that, you know, and I feel like my child is being picked on. And don't get me wrong, some schools, I worked in education. So before I came into youth work and doing parental engagement, I worked in education. And I know that you don't like all children. That's just human nature. You are not going to like all children. It's human nature. A child that is challenging, you may find that a teacher will pinpoint that child out. So if you're very vocal in the classroom, a teacher will pinpoint that child out more. They will. I mean, we've got to be honest about it. But I think it's really important that if a parent is engaging with the school, please, 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 please do not go in there cussing.
Raging.
Honestly,
Okay.
It don't work. It doesn't work. When
it brings back memories of the 70s.
When I was growing up, my mum would go up that school and cuss out. And I would sit there behind her grinning teeth because I knew she was going to defend me to the end.
Yeah.
And I was misbehaving. I was misbehaving in school, and my mum had my back. It is important to have your children's back, but not to the detriment of your child. Yeah. You've
spoken about your organization, and I'm going to have to wrap up in a second, which just breaks my heart, because I'm sure Lois may have some questions. I've seen comments coming in, and just in relation to the organizations, you've spoken about your amazing organization and parents becoming more involved in their school. It sounds like you're saying about the parents coming from a place of peace rather than hostility, regardless of what's happened, having your child's back, having that open kind of mindset that, you know, I will take on board what my child is saying, but I will equally go to the school to hear the other side of the coin. And it sounds like, you know, that's what you're really saying we need to think about. And I just want to bring Lois in because I've got a feeling, Kelly, that there's parents listening that will have something that they want to say, because, you know, you're doing both. You're an amazing mum, but you're also an entrepreneur. Lady Lois.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thank you. What an amazing contribution, Kelly. And you've literally set the chat on fire. There has been a barrage of questions coming through, a massive flurry of questions.
Excellent.
And almost a debate about whether to give a mobile phone or not. But
I knew she was going to trigger something.
It's always a debate.
Always a debate, but we won't get into that debate right now. But you know, Tony's been really instrumental in our chat, and he's just talking about, you know, 10-year-old kids are suddenly confronted with 14, 15, 16-year-old kids, and they're completely wired differently. And it kind of plays into the question that we have with John Hopey on the call line as well, and he's made a great point. He's saying, you know, he's a senior leadership in the secondary school, and transition is bigger than people are aware of. He's like the transferring pastoral data of that child to find out as much as we can, and when they transition from primary to secondary school is so key. So before you touch on that, you know, it's certainly something that from father to father we hugely believe in. And in fact, 3 weeks ago when school was about to finish, and we are in 3 schools in Hackney that are managing that transition and actually coming into schools and having parents come into schools before your child starts in September. We put on a buffet, a Caribbean buffet for them to enjoy, just so that parents can actually pass on that pastoral data and help with that transition. You know, Kelly, what's your thought on this?
I was privileged enough to attend one of those sessions, and I do think that it's really important. You know, if your child is transitioning over and your child has had a challenging time in primary school, this is not necessarily to say that they will have that same challenging time in secondary. You know, primary and secondary are 2 different, you know, types of schooling. The school in a secondary school is a lot bigger. I think what's really important about having a transitional session prior to your child starting is that it allows you to meet some of the teaching staff and build those relationships with the teaching staff, because ultimately what you need when you go into a secondary school is that teacher that you feel confident in talking to and approaching. So I know that we've kind of gone past that phase now, so let's talk about what you can do in September moving forward. I would definitely recommend that if there are any events going on in schools, parents, please take advantage and attend. I have sat in on quite a few workshops that start in September, and I've been quite embarrassed about the attendance, really. And that's not nice. When you think that the intake in an average school is 120 children, that could equate to 240 parents. So when you have a session and 30 parents turn up, you do get disheartened, and parents need to realise that if you aren't attending these sessions, there are some teachers will think you are not heavily involved in your child's education. So you need to be seen so that your child is heard.
Thank you so much, Kelly. There's another great comment from Leanne Woodstock, and she's saying that parents need to understand that technology and the technology the kids are exposed to, smartphones or not, parents have to upskill and safeguard their children. It's almost like a reverse mentoring, which we totally agree with that. What's your take on Leanne's comment there, Kelly?
Okay, so in regards to the smartphone, as I said, it's about you as a parent to monitor it. It's about, and I know, as somebody, as a parent and working with parents, I know that when your child gets to a certain age, they're a bit more reluctant to give you their passwords and stuff like that. But again, you need to have open conversations with your children. And there are a lot of platforms that can support your safeguarding. Now, for example, if you are with BT, Vodafone, EE, any of those networks, if you get the app and download it on your phone, you are able to monitor the internet within your home. You don't need to turn off the internet in the house. You can turn off your child's internet. There is also a platform called Think You Know. I always promote this platform. Think You Know is a platform that you log into. It supports young people around safeguarding online, but it also has an area where it supports the parents. And I think this is really, really important. Like someone was saying earlier on, we're very, very busy, but we can't be too busy to safeguard our own children. That is not the school's responsibility. That is our responsibility when they are with us and when they're out after school hours. So I would definitely recommend that you guys log on, to Think You Know. There are other platforms if you're not comfortable with that. NSPCC have a lot of information out there. There are also charities that have information, and your internet provider will also support with that parental control.
Absolutely. Thank you. We're having such great, even people in the comments are actually giving us, John Kofi's come back again, and he's given some real good practical advice on what you can do to just get involved in your child's school. One, learn everything about the school. Two, identify a core contact in the school who you can work with. And certainly for our children, it doesn't have to be a teacher. It could be, a mentor. It could be a supply teacher. It could just be, the PE teacher. Listen to for best for excellence as well. So thank you, John, for your comments as well. But we also have someone here, Michelle. She's just saying her a primary school doesn't like empowerment for parents without cussing. It seems like her school's a bit resistant to that kind of. Maybe might be reading the question wrong, but it seems that her school, primary school, doesn't like that kind of engagement between parents and children. What would you parents and teachers, what would you say there, Kelly?
I think some schools are reluctant. I think so. Through my experience of delivering, for example, gangs workshops, I know that a lot of schools will step back because it's like, well, we haven't got a problem with gangs in our schools, so why
I hear that all the time.
I think the importance is empowerment is to support prevention. I've worked in prevention, early intervention and intervention. Intervention is very difficult. Early intervention, you can do it, but you won't reach everybody. Prevention is cure.
That's it.
And what I would suggest to Michelle is, please put your school's name in the chat bar, because I will contact them, or I'm sure Father to Father will contact them, because empowerment for parents has to be first and foremost. And in line with what happened with Child Q, even more so schools have to take part. I'm a governor at a primary school who was very reluctant to let people in until I became a governor. And then they started letting people in. So sometimes parents, it is about making yourself heard, because if they're not making the change, you need to be part of that change.
Great, thank you, Kelly. And I know time is moving on, so I'm going
Completely.
to one more in, and exactly like what you said about being a governor, just to change from the inside. I know we have the amazing Sharon coming on shortly, but we have another tip as well from Tony that just says, get to know your friends. And
Excellent, Tony. Excellent.
And what that is, Tony, when you talk about getting to know your friends, this is why I keep on reiterating listening to your child. If your child is gaming and cussing or whatever on their computer, you need to be listening to those conversations so that you are aware of the friendships that they are making, even online. It's so important. If your child has a moment where they feel quite aggressive or annoyed when they're on a gaming platform, tell them to take off. We are teaching them how to behave and how to manage their moods and so on and so forth. And it is important that we teach our children about friendship. And that also means that if you, as a parent, are on the phone cussing out a friend or back chatting a friend and your child is listening, we are teaching our children how to have friendships. So that is really, really important. But the key thing here is listening. If you listen and your child feels comfortable enough to speak to you, they will be able to approach you. Or like I said earlier, somebody who is close in the family, during adolescence, a child may back off from a parent, but there will always be a cousin, an aunt, a family friend, a neighbor, or someone that they seem to be really close with. Encourage that relationship so that your child has that person that they can talk to that can then pass the information back to you.
Well, thank you so much, Lois and lovely Kelly. I'm so sorry, but time is against us today. It feels like people are starting to warm up with the questions, Lois. So thank you very much for that. Kelly, I wanted to thank you. I think we've got all the details about your amazing thecrib.org.uk. So any parents that are interested in reaching out to you, please look out for them. We do want to be empowered. We do want to make a difference, and we need to, because things are not getting better, unfortunately. So Kelly,
they will get better. They will get better, Lisa. With things like this, they will. We need to have hope.
Yeah,
they will.
Yeah. And I'm going to have that hope, my darling. What I've seen thus far, it's been a bit discouraging, but especially in this borough, we're doing a lot of work to try and improve that gangs situation that is an epidemic. So Kelly, lovely Kelly Reid from thecrib.org.uk, thank you so much for your time. And I hope that we get an opportunity to speak again, or I may meet up with you when we're at some of the similar events.
Okay, thank you very much for having me.
You're so welcome. Have a lovely evening. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to have a very, very short video regarding some amazing work that Father to Father are doing in Saturday school. So it's about a 2-minute video. Please don't switch off. Just relax and have a look at this.
My name's Courtney Brown and I'm the CEO and founder of Father to Father. We're very happy to be joining the Summer Wealth Camp because we believe it's just not about the students, but it's about you, the parents as well. It's about supporting you as well. You play a big part in the education system in regards to your children. Why do I say that? I say that because my experience of coming out of Hackney secondary schools is that there's not enough support for parents. We believe that parents want the best for their children, but life gets in the way. So we want to support you in navigating the education system. Sometimes our children are in the middle of arguments between mums and dads. We at Father to Father, we want to provide a mediation facility to ensure that the children, the students, are heard, but they are supported as well as we supporting you for the best of your child. So then we're not seeing their behavior spill out in education or spill out into the streets. So that's one of the examples we would like to offer you in Father to Father. We're here to support you, the parents, because you're just as important as your children are.
Hi, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. This is Walk This Way. In case you just tuned in, then it's an education special. And while I was focusing on childcare, because that's the thing that triggered me, you just heard with Lisa and Kelly there, a kind of a look. And as a parent with a child in year 8, which is when they have a lot of the troubles, apparently, it's fascinating to listen to. This is brought to you in conjunction with Father to Father, under the guise of Nexus and with the permission of Enfield Council. It will live online, either on YouTube or you can catch it on Facebook. So please, if you miss something, you want to watch it again, recommend it to somebody else. Then that's it. We want you to leave your questions. We've got a lady who I met on this platform, actually. Met on this, invited her onto a little show we did called No Joke. She's part of the Black Governors Network, because what you'll find is that you can get people into places, but quite often, because the structures aren't there, you need support. And Sharon and her organization do that. She doesn't need any help from me. It's about governors, and Sharon's here now. Long time no speak. Greetings to you, Sharon. How are you?
Oh, very well, thank you. You?
Well, I'm all right. I thought you'd be busy at the opening ceremony of the Commonwealth Games. I didn't know you'd have time for us.
I live about 10 minutes walk from there, and it's been a nightmare. For anybody who lives in the area, it is not a happy time for us. So we're avoiding it like...
No. Embrace it. It's the time for the world to know Birmingham, and it'll be fantastic.
Oh, it will be.
I know you don't need any help talking, and it might be that I'll pop in and ask you a couple of questions. But I would really invite anybody listening at home. This lady knows her stuff, man. And in terms of giving support, encouraging people to be part of the change that they want to see, then that's it. Sharon, introduce yourself and tell them who you are and what you do.
Okay, I am the founder of the National Black Governors Network, which I created in 2017 because I really got tired of being the only Black person in the space. Whenever I was in a room, either in a school or at a big conference, there were, maybe me and one or two others. And so I wanted to, find a way of finding other Black governors. I thought, I can't be the only one. So I created it, not for schools to find us, but for us to find each other. And of the 32,000 schools in the UK, of the 300,000 volunteer network that are governors and trustees, less than 1% are Black. And the reality is that the governing board recruit the head teachers. So unless we have more Black people around the governing board table, then we are not going to move the dial on the fact that there are, I think, 97% white British head teachers in our schools. And if we don't adopt a top-down approach, then we're never going to get it bottom up. We will always be hitting that brick wall. So we have to be in the space. We have to occupy the space before the space can change. And one of my biggest gripes, and I will say it is one of my biggest gripes, is that we talk a good game. A lot of the barriers are there, but many of the barriers are perceived. And we do talk a good game when it comes to situations like Child Q and the protests that go on. But when it actually comes to committing, we're found lacking. We really, really are. I currently have a contract as head of governance for a trust that has over 40 academies. They manage a budget of £250 million of public money, and there are no Black people around the trust board. I'm the only Black person in the whole of the central team for a trust that manages and looks after and educates over 30,000 children. I was looking at the uniform policy for that trust today, and unless we are there and showing them how to look at things through the lens of race then nothing will change. Policies won't change. And I'm looking at the uniform policy and I'm saying the words extreme hairstyles needs to be removed completely, because it's too subjective and very discriminatory for especially our young black boys, but also our black girls. But they don't see it like that because they've never had to look at it like that. Their idea of extreme hairstyles could be, all sorts of things. But if that's what they want to use as part of exclusion, then they will use it. But if we're not in those spaces looking at words that are being used, images that are being shown, then nothing will change. So we have to be there.
What's the resistance? Is the resistance, oh, I haven't got enough time? We heard that earlier on with Amani. I don't have the inclination. I don't have the expertise. I'm not clever enough. What's the excuse given by people of color to you?
All of the above. And I would counter that by saying, the reason why I do what I do isn't even for my children. My children are adults now anyway, but it is for my children's children, because we're not going to undo 400 years in 12 months or in our term of office, and our term of office is 4 years. We're not going to undo everything, but we can at least make a change in the one space that we're in. Somebody, we don't feel comfortable necessarily being the only one around the table, but somebody's got to be the first. That's just the reality of where we're at. There is, past relationships with schools. People feel uncomfortable about that. They haven't had good experiences. But all the time when we're debating and umming and ahhing, our children are still in these spaces. So we could spend a whole 12, 18 months, 2 years saying, oh, not yet. Maybe when I get more time here or get more time there, or when I've changed my job, or when I've done this and when I've done that. And every single year, a new cohort of our children goes through the education system. They enter and exit. So whilst we're umming and ahhing, our children are still going through the system, unsupported, unrepresented.
One of the things that was interesting to me, and I lost my mind with that child key thing, is that I interviewed the leader of Hackney Council, Diane Abbott, all sorts of people. Mm-hmm. And it seemed to me as a layperson, so I'm glad to have the opportunity to ask you, Sharon, that the governance of a school, which is an academy, mm-hmm. is completely different. Can you just explain that a little bit for us, please?
Okay. Schools that are managed by local authorities are called maintained schools. Schools that are directly funded from the ESFA, the Education Skills Funding Agency, they can set their own curriculum. They are managed by a trust board, and they can dictate what the local governance looks like. So the trust board is the accountable body. So where you've got a trust that has got 40 schools, the whole structure is probably determined by just 10 people. And then all the local schools are dictated to, maybe a strong word, but they operate under what's called a scheme of delegation. So the policy is set from the trust level, and all the schools have to abide by that policy.
And just on that, what I learned from Child Q's situation is that the central trust itself, or where it's operated from, can be quite remote from some of the sites where schools are. So culturally, there can be a kind of, I don't know, for want of a better term, a dissonance. It's not the same that they're thinking that they're doing.
Well, absolutely. And when you've got a trust that has academy, you can have a trust of just 2 schools, or you can have a trust. I think the largest trust has got 90 plus schools, right, which is a humongous operation. And so you could have a school that is down in Cornwall, and another one that is up in Manchester, and the demographics are completely different. But if they're setting policy, they're setting a policy that is going to impact both settings. That is hard, but that's why we need local governance, because even with the policy that's set, Some schools, again, depending on the governance framework, can tailor the policy for their local need, but we still need representation, because, as I say, they won't see things the same way we see them. They just don't. They just don't. Whereas we will spot something in a heartbeat, one word that could affect a child in our school. They won't see it because it's just a policy that the data's changed and it's fine. It's still fit for purpose in their eyes. So it's ratified. So if we're not round the table saying, hang on a minute, but have you thought about this or have you thought about that, then it's not going to change. And in terms of child Q, the safeguarding policy, the other another excuse that I get or often hear is there's so many papers to read or the meetings are long. Yeah, the safeguarding policy alone is at least 40 pages long, and it's linked to what's called the Keeping Children Safe in Education policy that's set by the DfE. So combined, you're talking about a 100-page document, and you have to sit and read that as a governor and understand it and know what.
I think that's why I said there's a load of educated people in me. I think you lot read so much that common sense falls out of the bottom of the chair. Because if anybody can tell me that it's right for police to go in a school and tell a little girl to move her pad, that I don't need to read a 100-page document to tell me that isn't right. Let me ask you a different thing. Because it's not between me and you, but I just feel as though this is the way we reason. And I have another job where I'm not allowed to reason the way that I properly reason. So I'd like to reason with you properly in the way that we do. What does a term mean? I'm playing around with a term in my head. I like words. Tell me, Sharon, what the word adultification means.
It's where this is my summary of it. It is where children aren't viewed as children, they are viewed as adults. And what the new guidance from the DfE is doing is changing the words from student and pupils to children to stop that happening. Because it is all about language. It is all about language. And again, when my son got to 14, 15 and his voice dropped and he's growing hair on his legs and all that,
and his voice dropped and his balls dropped as well.
He's still my little boy, but to the outside world, to teachers, he's grown. And especially if they're
do white kids get, does the term adultification, I believe in words too, which is why in my vocabulary, I no longer use the word slave. I say enslaved people. I want to remind people that we are talking about human beings. That's me, right? But I'm interested if community, so community is a word that's only ever applied to black people, right? And I want to know if adultification is a word, again, that's only ever applied to black children. Is it applied to white children?
I doubt that very much.
Okay. Then it's racism.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's racism.
Yeah, absolutely. But they won't use the word adultification in school. That's what's happening. But they won't use it. I've never heard it used whether it's round a governing board table or in school operationally. I've never heard it used. But that's what's happening.
Sharon, just take a minute for me and explain to people why they're listening, why, in your opinion, if you have a child, if you have the time, if you have the inclination, you should at least find a little more about, the Black Governors Network, the National Black Governors Network. Just do that, and then we'll see if people have any questions, and then Lois can come on and put those questions on people's behalf.
Okay, I understand it can be difficult if you're not familiar or used to being in spaces like that. But my encouragement would be feel the fear and do it anyway, because sometimes the perception isn't the reality. And being around that table, you can help, just your presence alone can help to change the space around the table. So it's important that we are present. And my coach taught me years ago, there's plenty of room at the top. It's the bottom that's crowded. Trust me when I say the spaces are there, we need to occupy them. I get so many emails from schools wanting diversity, not knowing how to approach Black people, because, you know, sometimes we're not easy to approach. And so I'm trying to navigate that terrain for them. But I need the Black community to say, yes, Sharon, I'm willing and ready and able to do that, so that I can make these linkages. At the moment, I've got more vacancies, more requests than I have people from our community to fill them. Because when I'm texting people, when I'm emailing people, it's like, oh yeah, I want to do it, but.
I remember a friend of mine told me that while we wait for Lois to come on, you know, they've been trying to get this Black parent to the school for the whole term. She couldn't come. She was too busy. The child took out their phone in the class, so they confiscated the phone, and mum was at that school the next morning. You know, time is an interesting thing, isn't it? Because we make time, all of us, for what we think is important.
Absolutely.
For me, this is important. Lois, have we got questions for Sharon?
Yes, we do. Another popular guest. We've got Sharon. You've got a lot of your questions coming through, and some really great comments as well that I've been sharing on the screen as well. And the first one of the questions, one of the comments really was from John, just saying it's some children who have considerably poor experiences in primary school have stronger secondary experiences because of they thrive in a bigger environment. And this is kind of a tail on to Kelly, who was on prior to you, but I thought I'd get it in there quickly as well. We also have someone saying that, Tony, he's interested to know if the MBGN have done any analysis on the percentage of schools without Black governors. He says, surely there must be a requirement of ethnic numbers within each governor's board. Is this something that you guys have been able to do?
There is, most schools don't collect the data because it's easier to, once they collect the data, then they've got to face the situation. But an organization called the National Governance Association did a survey amongst their members, and I think they cover about 7,000 schools or something like that, and less than 1% of governors identified as either Black African Caribbean, or Black British. So the numbers are really low, and we can't mandate that that every school has a Black governor. I've had people say to me, you know, when I deliver training to schools, you know, Shan, we haven't got any Black children in our schools, so why do we have to have Black governors? And my response to that is that our world is already diverse. The world of our children is already diverse. So how can we prepare our children for school, for the world beyond the school gates, if we're not reflecting that world inside school? And with following the pandemic, there's more virtual meetings now, so you don't even have to travel. If you find a school that holds their meetings virtually, you can literally click on and click off without leaving your front room. So, you know, it is easier now more than ever. If you're a teacher aspiring to leadership, you must become a governor in another school, because you've got to be able to see a school strategically and not just operationally. Trust me, it's the best CPD you can ever get. So if you know anybody who's teaching, who are aspiring to leadership, get them to become a governor, not in the school that they're working in, but in a different school, because they will be able to sit on the appraisal committee, which is appraising the head teacher. They'll be able to sit on the finance committee so that they can make decisions around school budgets and see how you know, a £1 million budget in a primary school or a £5 million budget in a secondary school, how is that money spent, and have input into that, and then take that knowledge into their own school and also into an interview situation for those leadership positions. It has to be a two-pronged approach like that, working from the bottom up, but especially top down. We have to be in those spaces.
Thank you, Sharon. I mean, you guys, you've heard it here first, and your things to do list on Monday get into being. a school governor. Sharon said it loud and clear.
Can I just add, I run no cost, I run on a termly basis networking events virtually for any existing Black governors, and I also do networking events for anybody interested in being a governor, but I don't do talking shops. If you are interested in being a governor and want to proactively find a school, then join any of those events. The website is it's on the screen. Join up to the mailing list and be part of what we're doing. Otherwise, we can't keep going over and over and over things. We need to be there for our children.
Absolutely, thank you, Sharon. We've also had Tony coming on saying that he's not seeing that policies are actually changing. There's a lot of tokenism going on in schools. Like, let's just grab this that way, and let's take a picture and put him on our brochure and things like that. Are you seeing that as well in schools? Yeah. Is that something that your governors have mentioned?
It does happen, but as I said earlier, we're not going to change the world overnight. And if what you're trying to achieve in one setting isn't working, you don't have to stay there. A term of office is 4 years, but you can leave at any time. I remember joining a governing board, and the moment I started to challenge, there was so much pushback. I said, you know what? This fight isn't for me. So I left that school and I took my governorship into another setting, because I'm not interested in fighting anybody. I will push and I will challenge and I will scrutinize, but I'm not fighting anybody. There are over 30,000 schools in the UK, so you don't have to fight in this corner. Take your governorship into another school setting that do want to move forward, because we know that not everybody wants change. We know that.
Lovely, thank you. We've also got another comment here. He's expressing that there's quite a lot of teachers that are leaving. He said he has a friend's school that's lost 22 teachers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just astonishing. Are you seeing a lot of that happening?
Yeah, there are a lot of teachers leaving the profession for various reasons. Some of it is on the it's more about testing rather than educating. Some of it is around pay, others around progression. But I think I was saying to somebody recently that the pandemic has seen a significant shift in home education. And whereas before, any parents that opted to home educate their children were then completely reliant on their knowledge to put together a curriculum for their child. Now, with the increase in technology and the access to online learning, we can literally design curriculums for our children and pick the best teachers globally to educate our children. If we're smart with it, we can do that. We just need to understand what the curriculum is, what is best going to serve our child, because not every child is suited to traditional education. That's fact. And so we have to work out that if our child is saying that in a school situation, in a classroom, they're not performing to the best of their ability, maybe that is not the environment for them. And we need to look at our children as individuals and not necessarily just feed them to a system that isn't serving them.
Fantastic, thank you. And I'll squeeze one more in as well. It's more of a comment, I think, to the question about I can't even get the words out.
Identification.
Thank you so much for coming to my rescue. And Tony here says that drag queens reading stories to nursery children is a type of issue that brings people talking about adultification and not race related. Is that the kind of thing that you're seeing, or that your governors are coming back and talking about?
That's not what I'm hearing at all.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah, those videos are going around. I think we've all seen them. I personally think, if you've got 20 parents who are happy for something to be taught to their children, then that's fine, isn't it? As long as other views are taken on board. But I guess, Sharon, you will be talking about those videos, because I'm sure they'll get to Birmingham. But maybe you need to get the Commonwealth Games out of the way first, you see. Get out there, see something, Pay the £8 congestion charge. As always, if people want to get in contact and find out more about what you're doing, give us the digits, please, Sharon.
It is nbgn.co.uk, and you can send a contact directly from there, or just have a look at all the different things. But before I go, if you're interested, the Governor's Podcast, so you'd stick your earbuds in and just listen to some of the episodes on the Governor's Podcast. It's myself and my daughter, who's also a governor, and we talk about governing in the 21st century. So that will be a good grounding in terms of what governing really is all about.
Well done. Well done. God bless you. Look after yourself. Thank you very, very much, Sharon. Look after yourself.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Lois is coming back on. Lois, we're behind time. It's all your fault.
Way behind time. You're on mute, my lovely.
Same thing. I mean, I've been doing this for about 2 years, all these virtual meetings, and every day I hear the same thing, but I'll learn one of these days. But yes, I get blamed for everything around here. Timekeeping is not down to me, but I'm tough skin. I will keep it.
Right. So we need to move on now. We've got Debbie to come on now.
We've got Deborah Robinson, and we've still got the lovely Laverne. So I'm going to shoot across. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, lovely Lois. I'm going to have the pleasure of introducing Deborah Robinson, lovely English teacher by profession, recently an assistant vice principal in an outstanding Hackney academy. Deborah is also a school governor with over 20 years experience working within the educational field. She has a mounting of knowledge, skills. Look at you, Deborah, looking all chic and cute. Take yourself off mute, my lovely. Sorry that I've kept you waiting.
It's all right. It's been really, really insightful.
Let me tell you something. You look about 20 years experience. You still there. Good evening, my darling. How are you?
Hi. Hello, Lisa Marie. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Now, your bio was so long that I just want to get straight to the interview. I just want you to tell us a brief thing about yourself. I've got a ton of questions. I know that the public are eager to talk to you. This is our educational special. Who are you, Deborah, and why are you a sought after guest on Walk This Way?
Yeah, so you got part of me right. Absolutely. My name is Deborah Robinson. I'm an English teacher. I have been teaching for over 23 years. I too, like your previous guest, Sharon, I've been a parent governor and a teacher governor. For the last 7 or so years of my career, I was an assistant vice principal at an academy in East London. I now work for the education branch, and I'm on the senior leadership team for education in an East London borough. And so I've got a wealth of experience from, being head of department, advanced skills teacher, and obviously most recently an assistant vice principal. And my passion is teaching. I do love teaching, and where possible, where I can support individuals on a one-to-one, I still do that to keep to keep me within the classroom setting, if you like. But yeah, so my most recent role for the local education authority that I work with, that was, or is rather, when I left school, my focus was on engaging parents. It was a role that was created to work with schools within the borough to especially work with the senior leaders to engage parents. And it's not that these parents didn't want to engage. For one reason or another, there were many barriers. And I most definitely think it's incumbent on the schools to actually find out what those barriers are, know who they need to engage. And parent research tells us that if you target your parents, then actually ensuring that your parents come to you is exactly what the schools needed to be working on through targeting. But that's going to come through data. Next year, I'll be working on diversity and inclusion in my senior leadership role. So I'll be writing a charter, an education charter that focuses on primarily secondary schools. And the focus will be around anti-racism and SEND. So lots of things doing.
Busy bee.
Yeah, but I'm having a break at the moment. I'm definitely.
Well, it sounds like you all deserve a break. You know, we clapped for our amazing NHS practitioners. I've seen some teachers do phenomenal work, especially during the pandemic, when our key workers have had to go to work and their children have been in school. So, you know, thank you for your service. One of my questions is this. How important is it, in your opinion, that there's good communication between parents, teachers and governors? What's the impact if that's not in place?
It's fundamental. We know whose voices are amplified in a lot of our schools. In a lot of our schools in the borough in which I work, it's by and large a diverse borough, but the data of recent suggests that it's getting whiter and therefore becoming more reflective in the schools.
Yeah.
However, even where there isn't a predominantly white student population, the voices that are amplified are quite often the white middle class voices. So if the lenses through which the school environment is seen are through a kind of monoculture lens, they will do everything to not see our children and not hear our parents or children. That said, we are not reflected in the policies, we are not reflected in the curriculum because our voices aren't amplified. I put it to you that no parent is deliberately trying to disengage from their child's education. There are reasons, without making excuses, there are reasons for why lots of parents from the Black and global majority communities do not engage. I was born in Hackney, and I know Hackney from in the 80s. I went to school in Hackney, and Hackney has got quite a, whilst it celebrates over 97% of its schools now being good or outstanding, what it has is a checkered past, as we know, with regards to education, policing, engagement with regards to mental health, etc. And so, to come back to your question, communication is pivotal, and it's got to be a three-way thing. To some young people in our schools, the governance is these white gods in the sky, way up there, unreachable. I don't even know if I knew as a 14, 13-year-old who the governors were. So in terms of governors communicating with the young people in their school and the parents, I think that's paramount. And I think it's paramount that parents know who sits on the governing board. And that said, some schools actually have the pictures up of their whole school staff. And you get a sense when you walk into their reception what school body looks like, from the dinner ladies to the caretakers, everybody. And unfortunately, there is an over representation of Black and global majority staff in terms of the TAs, teaching assistants.
You see that in the care field as well.
Right. And it goes back to what all our previous guests were saying in terms of sitting in certain spaces to change the narrative. Right. And again, that is also through communication. It's important that parents don't only communicate on Parents' Evening, understanding what the understanding the curriculum, and understanding the curriculum doesn't necessarily mean I need to become a historian or an English teacher. I need to be able to ask my child about their learning, and if my child can't tell me about their learning, then it's something I'm going to question. I need to be able, as a parent, to be able to communicate with a teacher an understanding of the assessment. If I get assessment data and it shows my child is on a 4 last term and this term they're on a 4 again, I'm going to question that. My child has plateaued. So the communication is all, you know, I know Courtney's doing a massive piece of work around 360 in terms of the student or the child, the teacher, and the parent. And it's got to work like that. We've got to be invested, because if we're not invested, if we don't make education our business, then actually, for me, I see education as not just a door opener, but a door opener to social mobility and just moving someone into the next step, whether that be employment, whether it be apprenticeship, or whether it just be the next level to someone's education. Communication is paramount, and that is from the school to the parent to the school, the child to the parent. If we're not engaging in this discourse, if we're not, you know, go back to what Kelly was saying, if we're not listening to our child or even taking notice of the communication that's coming from the school, then we haven't got a leg to stand on in terms of challenging. And we need to challenge as Black and global majority. And I'm using the term Black and global majority because that's Rosemary Campbell's term. And she's written a paper on that. And you know, she talks about 85% of this globe, this world that we live in, is occupied by Black and brown people. So we have been minoritized. And Eddie talked about language being important. We're not an ethnic minority. We are very much in the global majority, as we make up 85% of this, you know, of the population in this world. So to that end, it speaks to Sharon's point about maybe the apathy coming from some Black and global majority parents. And again, it's about schools understanding where those barriers are, why those barriers are there. And we need to walk with that entitlement, and we need to walk with those policies in our hand, understanding the policies. So actually we're not bamboozled. Oh, they're telling you your kid can go there. No, my kid's going to stay in this school. We need to be empowered, essentially.
So thinking about the African Caribbean community, and I'm so aware of the fact that, you know, time is against us. So my apologies to bombard you with questions. It's 2 questions in one, really. How can parents stay involved in the schools? What should the schools be doing in terms of engaging our African Caribbean community? And do you think that there's any obstacles to that happening? And what should parents and carers know about engaging schools?
I think there are schools that do. We think we know who is engaging, and we think we know who is not engaging. And they think they know which parents are not engaging by the fact that they are not having interactions with them, regular interactions with them. Gotcha. However, it's funny because I did a workshop recently, and I did it with a parent, and she said the schools know exactly how and when to contact a parent when the child is in trouble.
It's true.
It's very true. So schools need to really be looking at their data. Your first guest, Armani, I believe his name was. Your first guest, he spoke to that point accurately. Black Caribbean boys and girls are not performing in line with their peers. We know that the performance of our Black Caribbean boys and girls, it fluctuates. We know that they leave primary school, end of Key Stage 2, with some brilliant results. It's incumbent on us as parents to understand what those results mean. So the SATS results have just been released, and parents will be in the middle of getting their results for their children if they haven't already received them.
Yes.
We need to understand the assessment data. So the assessment, we know if your child in year 6 leaves with a score of 100, that is a good average. We know if our child is not reading at their chronological age, that is a problem entering the secondary school system, because they won't be able to access and navigate the secondary school resources.
Yeah.
We know that quite often our Black Caribbean boys, they tend to dip. Having left primary school with some good results, there is a dip in year 8, and that gap widens. And the widening of that gap is actually hard to narrow. So by the time we're in year 10 and year 11, schools are working mad to try and put intervention programs in place. I did not leave it to the school, and we must not leave it to the school, because essentially, while we've left it to the school, that gap continues to grow. So for me, I can't remember your question, but it is what we should know as parents.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask Lois to jump on, because
no problem.
I can see comments blowing up.
And schools need to be looking at their data. In order to target parents, they need to be looking at their data. We know that there is enough data out there. There's enough historical data. There's enough current data. And there is enough information coming from the primary schools to give us a sense of where the child's journey is, and that the trajectory of that child in the secondary school. So actually, it is about targeting children really, really early. And if we're targeting the children, we target their parents as well. I'll pause there. I'm acutely aware that I haven't really answered all your questions.
Do you know what, my darling? You've done above and beyond. Lady Lois, what questions have we got?
We've had some amazing questions coming through and some amazing comments as well. What I'm loving about the people in the chat, they're not just answering questions, they're actually empowering other parents that are on the group. We've got a lot of educators that are tuned in today as well. So it's great because we're not only getting support and advice from our guest speakers, but the privilege of educators are coming on as well. So anyway, without further ado, there was Tony's come on to say parents can easily be lost on certain subjects. Maths post school is a chore to many parents. I know I'll hold my hands up. During lockdown, I was homeschooling. It was like crazy. I learned so much about Greek mythology that I never knew and never wanted to know, but I had to be there for my son. What's your take on that, Deborah?
Matt, I was crap at maths, and I suppose I was in a fortunate position whereby with my child's dad we could afford a tutor, and my daughter, she had a maths tutor, must be from about year 4 right up to year 11, and she even sat her maths early and did it again. However, it's not about parents becoming the teachers. It's about us seeking out the resources out there. There are lots of resources out there. There are resources out there. There are tutorials out there. There's YouTubes out there. There are lots of little podcasts out there, how to navigate, surds and, angles and so forth. It isn't about us becoming the teacher. It's about us ensuring that we know where to find the tools to support our children, and using different platforms to ensure that we can signpost our children. BBC Bite Size is useful. Children love it. Lots of the revision books that are on Amazon, don't have to buy them new. I used to tell my kids, a lot of them were pupil premium students, and I would say, don't buy them new. Ask your brothers or your sisters, or actually just go and buy the second-hand ones. So it isn't about us becoming teachers. And I know as parents, and I know there is that sense that we want to do everything, so we need to understand it so we can relate to our children. No, you're never going to get me understanding a maths paper or a long complex maths question. It will bamboozle me. So what I know I can do is signpost. It's also about us ensuring that we're doing the first thing that we can do with our children, and that is reading. If we can't read literally, if we can't read fluently, if our children cannot read fluently, there's a problem before they even embark on that maths question, because the maths questions have become so complex. There are several steps, literacy steps, that a child needs to figure out before they actually get to trying to decipher decipher the maths problem. So for me, it starts at home. Where are our children's first teachers? And we're better than actually to establish these routines with regards to reading, what happens when you come home, how you approach school, how you approach your studies. Where best to establish that than at home? Finding a space at home. We are aware of the challenges with regards to space with some people, families. Actually, even if it's a little shoebox, several shoe boxes, get some boxes from Tesco's. That's your math stuff. That's your science stuff. Because by the time they get to secondary school, they're dealing with about 8-9 subjects. And they're dealing with a timetable. Transition is crazy. They're dealing with a timetable that they haven't had to deal with at secondary school. So again, it's about the parents establishing routine, practice, and structures in the home to actually allow their child to embrace what will be a really complex secondary school system. I saw a comment from Tony in the chat with regards to the Tudors and the Vikings. Yeah, this education system, let's talk it for real. It's not designed for us. It's not designed for us. It's not designed by us. But what are we going to do? Continue to battle that. What we can do is engage in some supplementary schools. I'm hoping I can say this. There's a supplementary school. It's an online one. It's called Nia Academy, or there's a Leaps and Bounds. I can put the link in the chat.
Please.
There's a Leaps and Bounds educational organization. I know they do lots of tutoring, but essentially it is about us ensuring that we've not only talk up education in our homes, understand what it can do. The challenge with the teachers and the challenge with the schools mustn't become our children's challenges, because actually they will be on the back foot. If we can advocate for our children, then we need to do that. But what we need to do is ensure that our children get through this education system. And Tony's put something about the Black curriculum. Yeah, you're right. The Black curriculum is resisted by most schools. And the last education white paper, which was released recently, a couple of months ago, said there's no intention to change the curriculum. So what are we going to do about it? Well, we're going to make sure our children know who our Black artists are, Black musicians, inventors, etc. And we're not going to leave it to the school. However, this comes full circle with regards to governance. If we sit in the governance, then we can challenge the curriculum. In the borough that I currently work for, I am taking forward Orlean Badou's excellent work, and I am taking forward the second phase of the diverse curriculum. And again, it is about ensuring that we are talking about the Black contribution, and we're not seeing Black people through oppressive lenses. You know, your child can go through history looking at enslaved Black people, geography looking at hungry Black people in Africa, English looking at freaking crooks in Ice and Menheim, Benup. Do you know what I mean? We can reverse. Yeah, we can reverse.
I understand. So Deborah, I'm so sorry. I could have a one-on-one with you, yeah? But I have to get my amazing Laverne on. I feel so bad. She never gets enough time.
Go for it.
She is our educational and child psychotherapist. I believe lovely Eddie's going to join me again. But Deborah, thank you so much for your wealth of knowledge, for your passion, for the information. Please do put that information in the chat. We do want the parents and the amazing guests and listeners today to be able to tap into what you're talking about, because this is what Walk This Way is about. We're sharing information. I believe my lovely co-host Eddie will be rejoining me, and then I'm eager to hear from Laverne. So Deborah, have a lovely evening, my dear.
Thank you.
Keep doing the great work that you're doing. Okay, my love.
Bye, Eddie. Bye, Lisa.
Bye, Deborah.
Bye.
Oh, Eddie, I tell you, not enough time, mate.
It's Deborah. She can't stop her from talking. She just talks into. She talked about of mice and men. Then there was a teacher that rang me up with her 2 daughters last year. It's one of my favorite. It's on one of the bookshelves here, and it's one of my favorite books, Steinbeck. And I had never thought about the amount of times in that book they use the N word, and that being, it's just, you know, George and Lenny. And never, and again, and like Sharon said, until somebody points something out to you, until you're in an environment. As a kid, we just read it, and it was part of the vocabulary. But you imagine in a school in the 21st century reading that word out, because they read out aloud. It's like, oh, maybe we need to think about this. Bring on Laverne, because you're right, we never have enough time with her. So.
Never. We're going to have to do a show just for Laverne.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to talk to them.
No, you're not going to talk to anyone because they've cut you off. Evening to you, Laverne.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm all right. One of the things that's always interesting about you come on at the end and you pick up and you kind of weave everybody's statement, something that we can pick up and run with. I don't want to interrupt you. You just roll.
Well,
who you are first, because I think that's really important for all of our guests.
Yep. So I'm an educational psychologist. I work in schools and with children, young people and their families. And I think particularly what feels relevant being here this evening is working more in terms of being alongside schools as they try to develop their anti-racist approach to education in all spheres. And I suppose if I think about what struck me tonight, you know, there's been a couple of things around parents. I am a parent. I feel for parents. I think that, you know, the job has never been easy, but it certainly has become a job where you have to be leaning in every way. You have to be leaning into schools and really doing your homework so that you can be clear that you're choosing the right school for your child, that it's got the right sort of people in it that you feel are going to represent your children. And I think that's been partly what I've heard tonight through governorship, you know, asking those questions. Who's in your senior leadership team? Who looks like me in the senior leadership team? If they look like me, they're probably going to look like my children. And then that's going to make my children feel inspired. I think the other thing was leaning in, as I think one of your contributors said, to your children at home, listening to what they've got to say, being available to them. And I think it was really key tonight to hear that, you know, toddlers, when you have the toddlers tantrums, you know, that's really accepted. When we get to adolescence, we have got to accept something about their way of discovering the world. And they're going to make lots of mistakes and they're going to get a lot of things right. But you've got to be there and you've got to be prepared to talk about the mistakes and help them recover from them. I think one of the questions that I'd want parents to think about tonight is ask schools what they're going to do for your child. What do they think they're going to be able to bring out in your child's experience of being in a teaching and learning environment? And when there are issues, when there are difficulties, ask them what they think's happened. Because I think unless we open a dialogue around when things go wrong, we're never going to be able to work together to work out how we can get things right. And the last thing I would say is I do think it's a great challenge to be the only black or brown face on any board, a governing board. Why not pair up with another parent and do it together? I thought it was fantastic what we were hearing from Sharon about governors, but I know, you know, it's not an easy place to find yourself to be the only one. So I think we should be encouraging schools, we should be encouraging governing boards or governors to employ and recruit a couple of black or brown people so that they can be there for each other. It's a lonely territory sometimes when you're in a very different room to the one that you might be very used to at home. And I felt myself coming back to that time and time again, that actually we've got to use each other and be with each other to feel empowered.
Yeah. The only other thing that I'd say, I mean, I've got to say my motivation is childcare. I'm not going to pretend that any of the other stuff isn't important, but that's what's triggered me. Do you think Deborah talked about this 360, the parent, the child, and the teacher. Do you think that the really practical things that we haven't maybe talked about tonight develop a relationship with your child's teacher in class, try to get their mobile number, get their email number, let them know if there's a problem in the school that you want them to contact you. You think we could also, on that level, engage? I'm not saying that any of these would have made any difference at all, because clearly they had an image and they needed to go as far as they needed to go to prove what they thought. That's my take on the situation. But perhaps if mum or dad or somebody in the school had a relationship, perhaps one of them might have called. I don't know. Is that me pie in the sky thinking?
I don't think so. I mean, I think there's a real painful reality to child Q. I mean, I feel an instant pain when I hear about it and when I think about it, because I think, how could that have happened? But rather than sort of stopping there, I want to think, how can we prevent it? And I think, Eddie, you're saying all the right things. You've got to be known in your child's school. You've really got to lean in. You've got to say, what's going on? Get involved. But I think these are easy things to say, but they're hard ways to find yourself in. But I remember being a parent who, you know, when things happened, I didn't sort of rest on my laurels. I had to really sort of get myself into a state of mind where I thought I deserved to ask questions about this. When I heard things happening that I thought, how could that happen? I asked those questions. It felt terrible. It feels brutal at times, but it made people realize that I was interested and that I wanted answers and I wanted to work with them, and that I accepted, and this is not, you know, a comment on child Q, but because I think that's a very serious set of circumstances, but I realized that actually working together gained solutions. Yes. Yeah. So that was the way forward.
I think so. I think in another world, I work in an environment, and as a black man, when you speak, it's perceived as something else. So I think that, you know, that conversation about how you make your approach, maybe thinking about what you're going to say if you have to engage a teacher, maybe writing it down, maybe not coming off script, because the way it's received, take it from me, it is, you know.
Absolutely. I have no doubt about that. And I would never, I think if you as a parent, a black or brown parent, you want to talk to your school, child's school about something and you're worried about it, you go with a friend. I think you do not.
That makes it worse. It's like you're going tooled up.
No. I think you go with somebody and you say, I brought somebody with me because this is difficult for me. Because actually, sometimes these are difficult things we have to go into school and talk about. And if it's difficult, it's going to be emotional, and you're going to get emotional. So
how does somebody? Yeah, but how does just quickly? I know that we're going off track, but I just want to give anybody. We've done it on a Sharon, on a governor. We're doing it on a kind of when do you give the child a mobile phone? We've done it on talking to your child. We've done it. You know, we're doing it on multiple levels.
Yes.
But you know, how do you say? Why do you do that to my child? So just say that to me in a non-threatening way. Because I'm going to say it now. Tell me if I can say it in a. Why did you do that to my child?
I would say.
That's scary, isn't it?
I would say, what happened? Can you tell me what happened here? Because I'm struggling to understand what happened, and I'm really interested in what went on. Because actually, you know, when things go wrong, you are interested in what's gone wrong. Yeah, I think once the emotions come down, yes, what's happened, and in what way can we make this better? I tell you, those are the. And you have to practice this because, you know, your child is the most precious thing to you. So when something goes wrong with them and you think they've been wronged, you really want to know what happened here and how are we going to make this better?
Just finally, because I mean, as I said, you wind these things up, and I'd have you on a lot more because you're very calm, you're very precise, and I'm pretty sure that there will be people who have questions directly from you. Is there one important message that you think, having watched today, listened to the other experts on, that you would like anybody watching to take away?
I think school takes up such an enormous part of our children's lives. I think it's not something to leave to other people. I think parents, you've really got to lean in. You've got to get to know the school, get to know people who are spending a very large proportion of the day with your children. You've got to make yourself known, and you've got to help them to understand you have very high expectations of the teaching and learning and the relationship you want them to have with your child.
Excellent. And that thing that I often tell this story. I interviewed a woman that I really didn't get on with. I didn't like her and I don't think she liked me, which was okay, because sometimes that makes the best conversation. But she did say one thing to me that would be my gift, and it has kind of guided me, which is that, you know, she expected her 9-year-old girl to go to university.
Yeah.
Now she may not go to university, but I think personally a lot happens to our children because nothing is expected of them. And it's a very different game if there's an expectation of what you can do. Laverne?
And an expectation of the teachers is key.
As well. There you go. There you go. Keep learning, Laverne.
Good to be with you.
God bless you. Look after yourself, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. Lisa Marie, Magistrate, Your Honour.
Let me back in.
They're broadcasting from a court the very first time today. That's fascinating to see.
I heard about that, Crown Court.
Yeah. How long before we get to, I don't know, OJ and something like that? Anyway, look, I mean, I've done my takeaway. Not that we're employed to give takeaways, but we're real people. Have you got one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm always challenged when I'm on Walk This Way. And today, the educational special for me has just reminded me about what's going on in schools, which are the little worlds and universes that our children occupy. I think the biggest thing that I'm taking away is get to know the individuals that are caring for our children for 7 to 8 hours a day. You know, we don't let our children sleep out, especially if you come from my family. Everybody's coming to your house. Yeah, you're interviewing everybody. So we're leaving our children in these environments, and we're not even taking the time to understand, to really assess that teacher. You know, do they understand my child? Do they understand their personality and character and the way that they learn? Are they labeling my child? Is my child always in detention for unfair reasons? What can I do to be present so that they know that my child has a network around them of safety and security, and they have a voice?
That's right. That's right. If there's an expectation of the teacher and the pupil, then they'll conduct their business to each other differently. And that thing that you lot were talking about earlier, know your child's friends. My mum always used to say, tell me who you frequent and I will tell you who you are.
Very wise words, mummy.
Lois, do you want to come and say bye-bye? I think you probably should, shouldn't you?
You're on mute, my lovely.
Goodness, I do this all the time. I need to have a big sign up somewhere. I'm always thinking it's like my husband or children wanted me to be quiet all the time, and now they have the opportunity because I forget to press unmute. But no, it's been another amazing education installment of Walk This Way. Phenomenal. It was so great. Just to hear the guest speakers, but also hear a lot of the educators and parents that were in the group, just also sharing their lived experiences and ideas and advice that will help us as a community. So I cannot wait for the next one. Thank you guys for having me again, being Mrs. Question person.
You're having us. You're in charge. We're here for you. You don't make it like we got anything, Lisa. We're just here holding the thing. You're in charge. When's the next one, Lois? What are you doing next? You got something big coming up, haven't you?
Yeah, well, we've always got things going on. Again, there's been a couple of questions in the chat about us doing the transition. We're still doing a lot of transitioning, helping parents transition their kids from primary to secondary school. We've got over the summer holidays, we've got our summer school happening. We've been placing in the chat lots of information about that, but everything can be found on the Father to Father website. Next year we've got a father and daughter's Valentine ball as well, so we'll be sending out tickets for that. It's like a 3-course meal, dinner and dance.
That's the 11th of February, important day.
There is so much going on, guys, and you know, it's because there's so much work to be done, and as Father to Father, along with Nexus and Enfield Council, there's just so much people that we need to help. There's so many things that need to be done, and it keeps us busy. So please continue to tune in to all the activities that we can do to help us, to help you. But please, massive shout out, really, there is a link to an evaluation form. We do not even know what events to put on without actually hearing from you, the parents, the educators, the community. So until you So if you can fill in the evaluation, we can review that and we can tailor make our events to better suit your needs. So please do click on that. So I'll hand back to you guys.
Yeah, that's really important, because you know, we could sit here and talk about what we think is important, but if you're watching today, you have an opportunity. And if you're not watching it in real time, but you're watching it again on Facebook or YouTube, please, you know, if you're having I know there's one that, you know, I've never talked about, but I know it's really difficult, which is about the lockdown, meaning more domestic violence, and particularly perpetrated by sibling on sibling or child on parent. And it's one of those great taboos, because nobody wants to call the police for their child, right? But if we talk about it, maybe we can put things in place. So those are some of the things that I'm saying. But if you're watching this and there are things, you know, we can do it with good humor, we can get experts, we have access to it, and we can hopefully do it in a way that can help everyone. That's the aim, really. Father to Father, walk this way with the help of Nexus, Enfield Council. Thank you very much. Check out that summer school. It's taking place. I was down there last week in the LEV building. Anybody knows Hackney? Opposite the municipal baths, and gives you a chance. I do it with my child. People say I'm funny, I'm mad, but absolutely, I think, you know, supplementary education, Saturday school, huge, because it deals with many of the things we talked about today. So it costs a fortune for me with them 2 big-head children I've got, but it's really, I'm not allowed to call them that. It's really important. It's really important. Lois, look after yourself. I'd like to say thank you to all the backroom staff, to Sarah Sunning herself, Arnold.
Miss our Sarah.
The big fella we haven't seen, to the Captain Courtney. I don't know where he is. Mervyn probably is hiding under something somewhere. Look, lots of people, lots of conversations in order to try and bring you the conversation, working collaboratively together to sort out some of the challenges that we're having. Lisa, I will give you, as always, the last word.
You're very kind, Eddie. Absolute pleasure. Thank you to amazing Nexus and Enfield Council, Father to Father, the amazing, formidable Courtney Brown and his lovely wife, Lois, and Blackstocks, who also support Father to Father, and to our listeners, the public, who have been kind enough to give us their views, and the amazing guests that have educated me. So I'm really going to take Sharon up on that offer and look into where I can get some time between all the things that I'm doing to be a school governor. Why not? You know, we have to be the change we want to see. Yeah, but good evening, God bless, and look forward to the next one.
Take it easy. We'll leave you with a video.